No doubt, Argentina the favorites here. How significant, Kasey, are they a favorite in this final for you?
Well, I don't think they're a huge favorite. I think the only reason they're a favorite is because of the difficulty in the group that Herc was referring to and the difficult clash with 1 day less rest against Uruguay that was crazy. I mean, that was a battle, having a man sent off and then finding a way to come through it, where I think Argentina had a comfortable match against Canada. They were able to rest players. And I think that's the only reason for me why Argentina is slight favorites, because Colombia is on a historic run, 28 games unbeaten. They've probably performed, you heard the conversation earlier about Spain being the most consistent side throughout the Euros. I think Colombia has been the most consistent side throughout Copa America. So if it hadn't have been for that battle against Uruguay and the emotions and how they're going to come out of that, I would have had them favorites. But because of that and the comfortable draw that Argentina have had, I think they just slide it.
Well, I'll tell you why they're favorites. They've lost 2 games in the past 5 years. Over 60 matches, only 2 losses. The last 10 tournaments, they made the final in 7 of those tournaments. They're defending Copa America champion and World Cup champions, and they've got arguably the biggest game changer in this tournament when healthy in Lionel Messi. That's why they're favorites, and most certainly, the road has been easier for them.
You agree with what Kasey says, that Colombia's been the most impressive team?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't care how you slice it. The balance in that team, how defensively good they are, how James Rodriguez has been the best player in this tournament, 6 assists. You've got a major X factor in Luis Diaz. You've got players throughout that spine, whether it's Camilo Vargas in goal, whether it's Davinson Sanchez, Jefferson Lerma, James Rodriguez. You've got game changers. And you're on a 28-game unbeaten streak. And you've already know within that unbeaten streak what it's like to play against this Argentina team. I just don't know if they're fit enough. It's a battle playing a man down on that type of turf against an opponent like Uruguay, who's very physical, losing one of your most important players in Daniel Munoz. What's the status of Richard Rios? Richard Rios, we saw him go out. He had a knee injury. What's that going to be like? Will he be fit enough to play? Nestor Lorenzo has a lot more questions physically heading into this match, but certainly they've been the home team throughout in this tournament. Maybe they'll be the home team in this final. They've been the most balanced team. They've been the best team. They've had the best players. You almost have to feel like they've got just as good enough a chance as Argentina does in this game, regardless of Argentina's big game record.
What kind of chances are you giving Colombia here, Shaka?
I'll double down on what Herc said. And yes, I think Colombia have been the most impressive team in this tournament. And probably a close second, you could argue, has been Uruguay. Coming into these semifinals, the difference between Colombia and Uruguay, I felt, were the quarters. Uruguay had that game against Brazil, Colombia had Panama, and you just thought the easier quarterfinals certainly would lean into Colombia coming out on top. Now you're comparing Argentina and Colombia in the final, you can't help but look at the semifinals. And Argentina playing Canada. Colombia with that semifinal against Uruguay. Again, questions, how does that play off in terms of their preparedness, their physicality? Can they match Argentina over 90 minutes or 120 minutes, whatever it may take? And right now, again, I'm leaning Argentina. And while Argentina have not been anywhere near their best, as we've seen in the previous 2 tournaments, the last Copa or the World Cup, while you could argue Lionel Messi hasn't been the player that he was in either of those 2 tournaments, he is still, and I'm echoing Herc here, the biggest game changer in this tournament. And I know this French guy who won the World Cup once. He keeps talking about it. I can't remember his
On
name.
this show.
Yeah, I've seen him on the show.
Do you have hair?
Beef, something with beef. Anyway, he talks about great players having big moments in big games. And that is exactly what Lionel Messi is. It's beyond dispute that he's a great player. And while this tournament has not been anything like a highlight reel as you'd expect from him, this is the big moment in the game. And you do not put him having that kind of performance, that kind of an impact in a final.
For more on this final, let's go to somebody who's been covering this tournament boots on the ground. That's Alexis Nunes. Alexis, we got a big question here in the studio, and that is, Who's going to be the home team Sunday in Miami? Is it going to be Argentina? That's Lionel Messi's, of course, hometown. Or is it going to be Colombia, who have basically been, as the boys have been saying, home field throughout this event?
Yeah, Sebi, do you know what? We are in Miami, so we know that there is such a strong Argentinian population here too, and even just a neutral fan that wants to side with Argentina because they are Argentina and have Lionel Messi. But right up there with Mexico and probably the Netherlands, I have never seen a country followed quite like Colombia. I told you from last year at the Women's World Cup where they even outnumbered most of the home fans as well there too. It is amazing to see how the fans of Los Cafeteros really show up for the team, and now they are in a final. Only just their third final of the Copa America. They've actually never even faced Argentina in a final of the Copa America. It is a historic and a monumental moment. Even when I was leaving North Carolina to come here, my flight was just filled with Colombia fans still wearing their jerseys from the night before in that match against Uruguay. So I think, once again, we expect this entire stadium to be maybe more Colombia, but still we know how strong Argentina's banderazo is as well.
All right, let's get some predictions from here in the studio then. A slight home field advantage, Kasey, for Colombia. Who are you going with Sunday?
I still think the fight against Uruguay took too much out of Colombia, so I think Argentina will scrape a 1-0.
1-0 Argentina. Herc?
I'm going to go, there is extra time in this game, in this final. I will go 1-1 regulation time, and I think Colombia are going to edge out Argentina here.
Wow, look at that. Okay, going against the grain. Shaka, what do you think?
I'm thinking similar, but the opposite. Extra time, but Argentina nick it 2-1.
Okay, one more pick here. Alexis, what do you think?
Do you know what, Sebi? I'm going to agree with Herc on this one. I think we definitely go to extra time, but I don't know. There's something special about Colombia, especially in the last 2 years, especially in this Copa America, and I'm going to pick them to just edge out Argentina in this one, but we know it's going to be a feisty battle, as we have seen when Colombia's involved.
Unbeaten in 28.
What's your primo taking?
What a story it would be if they can be 29. You know the standard play when Argentina plays. Argentina and the under. 3.5, 2.5, depending on how aggressive you get. But it most likely, not just because it's Argentina, boys, because it's a final, will be a low-scoring affair. We will be, of course, covering it in the aftermath, immediately following the final between Argentina and Colombia on Sunday night here on a live edition of Football America's This Foursome. And probably Alexis joining us from down there in Miami. Do not miss it. Should be right around 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. out there on the East Coast.